Today we are beginning with something that may feel familiar to many of you, yet deserves deliberate reflection. The academic library as an institution, a profession, and a strategic actor within higher education. For some of you, this is a space you have worked in for years, possibly decades. For others, this may be a professional aspiration or a leadership pathway you are actively preparing for. This lecture is not meant to repeat what you already know at a surface level. Instead, it is meant to help you reframe academic libraries in terms of purpose, power, responsibility, and future direction. When we talk about academic libraries, we are not just talking about buildings, collections, or services. We are talking about infrastructures of knowledge, about systems that shape how scholarship is created, accessed, evaluated, and preserved. Throughout this lecture, I want you to keep asking yourself, how does my role, current or future, connect to this larger ecosystem? Academic libraries are specialized institutions, but that word specialized is doing a lot of work here. Unlike public libraries, which serve a broad civic mission, or special libraries embedded in corporations or government agencies, academic libraries exist to serve the core missions of higher education institutions: teaching, learning, and research. Everything an academic library does should be traceable back to those three pillars. Supporting scholarship is not an abstract idea. It involves concrete decisions about what resources are acquired, which platforms are licensed, how discovery systems are configured, and how instruction is designed. Academic libraries do not merely provide access, they mediate access. They decide what is visible, what is prioritized, and what is sustainable within budgetary and ethical constraints. What truly distinguishes academic libraries is their mission alignment. They are not neutral warehouses. They are active partners in education and research, shaping intellectual inquiry through curated collections, expert guidance, and institutional memory. At the core of the academic library are three interconnected missions: access, information literacy, and preservation. While these ideas often appear in mission statements, in practice they translate into everyday decisions that are technical, financial, and strategic. Facilitating access today is less about owning materials and more about managing licenses, platforms, and authentication systems. Librarians regularly evaluate cost per use data, negotiate contracts, and make difficult cancellation decisions that directly affect teaching and research. Access work also includes coordinating with IT, troubleshooting off-campus access, and advocating to administrators about rising subscription costs and unsustainable pricing models. Increasingly, access conversations intersect with equity, open access, and institutional priorities. Information literacy has expanded well beyond database instruction. In practice, it involves helping students and faculty understand how information is created, ranked, and circulated, especially in environments shaped by algorithms and AI tools. Librarians collaborate with faculty to design assignments, embed information literacy outcomes across curricula, and support ethical research practices. This work also extends to faculty guidance on publishing choices, research metrics, and avoiding predatory journals. Preservation focuses on long-term stewardship of scholarly and institutional knowledge. Today, this includes managing institutional repositories, supporting research data management, and making choices about formats, metadata, and platforms that ensure future access. Preservation work also raises important questions about whose knowledge is collected, described, and sustained, prompting libraries to examine inclusive collecting practices and community-centered archiving. Beyond these core missions, academic libraries increasingly engage in areas worth closer attention: open educational resources and textbook affordability initiatives, scholarly communication and copyright advising, assessment and learning analytics, accessibility and universal design, space planning and learning-centered design, and emerging technologies such as AI-driven discovery tools. Leadership development, change management, and cross-campus partnerships are also critical dimensions shaping how libraries evolve. As you reflect on these roles, it is useful to consider where your current or future work fits within this broader ecosystem, and which of these expanding areas present opportunities for growth, influence, and leadership within your institution. Academic libraries did not begin as service-oriented spaces in the way we understand them today. In medieval universities such as the University of Bologna, libraries were primarily custodial institutions. Their central responsibility was safeguarding rare and handwritten manuscripts, often chained or stored in restricted areas with access limited to a small scholarly elite. The emphasis was preservation and control rather than broad participation or user experience. Understanding this origin is important because it explains why traces of custodial thinking still exist in academic libraries today, particularly around questions of authority, expertise, and who is permitted to access certain kinds of knowledge. Even now, decisions about access, borrowing, and use reflect a long history of gatekeeping shaped by scarcity. The shift from print to digital represents one of the most transformative moments in academic library history. This transition changed the user relationship to information from one defined by physical proximity and limited availability to one shaped by abundance, remote access, and speed. Practically, this meant new roles for librarians in managing licenses instead of ownership, teaching discovery skills rather than location-based searching, and supporting users who may never physically enter the library. Digital transformation also introduced new tensions. While access expanded, control often shifted from libraries to publishers and vendors. Libraries gained scale but lost autonomy, which helps explain current challenges around subscription costs, platform dependency, and long-term preservation of digital content. Modern academic libraries are further shaped by partnerships and consortia. Collaborations with national libraries, shared purchasing agreements, and technology vendors have expanded collections and services, but added layers of complexity in governance, decision-making, and accountability. Librarians now routinely work across institutional boundaries, balancing local needs with collective responsibility. Beyond this historical overview, there are several areas worth examining more closely. How historical models of control still influence contemporary policies, how digital dependence affects preservation and academic freedom, the role of consortia in reshaping collection strategies, and how libraries can assert leadership in an ecosystem increasingly driven by commercial platforms. Reflecting on this history allows librarians not only to understand where current tensions come from, but also to recognize where change is possible and where professional values can be actively reasserted. So, we can claim that the academic library is the intersection where accumulated knowledge meets the act of discovery. It is where past scholarship encounters new questions. For students, this may be their first exposure to scholarly discourse. For faculty, it is a research infrastructure. For institutions, it is a signal of academic legitimacy. Libraries sit at this crossroads, enabling discovery while grounding it in intellectual rigor. As professionals, it is important to recognize that discovery is not accidental. It is designed. Discovery systems, metadata practices, instructional interventions, and spatial design all influence how knowledge is encountered and understood. Reference and research assistance remains one of the most visible services of the academic library, but its nature has changed substantially. Today, reference work often takes the form of in-depth research consultations rather than brief transactional questions. Librarians support advanced database searching, citation and reference management tools, systematic and scoping reviews, and research design conversations, particularly for graduate students and faculty. In many libraries, this also includes support for grant proposals, literature reviews for accreditation or program review, and guidance on disciplinary research norms. Closely related to this is support for research workflows. Librarians assist users with tools for organizing sources, managing citations, tracking research impact, and navigating publishing options. This includes advising on journal selection, understanding impact metrics, identifying predatory publishers, and supporting compliance with funder mandates. Increasingly, librarians also provide guidance on responsible use of AI tools in research, helping users understand both capabilities and limitations. Information literacy instruction has expanded far beyond the traditional one-shot session. In practice, this work now includes curriculum-integrated instruction, embedded librarianship, and collaboration with faculty on assignment and assessment design. Librarians help align information literacy outcomes with program goals, accreditation standards, and institutional learning outcomes. instruction often addresses critical evaluation of sources, data literacy, media literacy, and ethical use of information, including issues of citation, plagiarism, and authorship in AI-mediated environments. Academic libraries also provide significant instructional design and teaching support. Many librarians collaborate on course design for online and hybrid learning, contribute learning objects such as tutorials and research guides, and support learning management systems. This instructional role positions the library as a pedagogical partner rather than a supplemental service. Specialized collections and archives represent another major service area. Rare books, institutional archives, digital collections, and discipline-specific resources support advanced scholarship and original research. Increasingly, these collections are activated through digitization projects, class-based archival research assignments, digital humanities initiatives, and faculty-student research collaborations rather than remaining passive holdings. Beyond these core areas, academic libraries now offer a growing range of additional services worth close attention. These include research data management and data literacy support, open educational resources and textbook affordability initiatives, scholarly communication and copyright advising, institutional repository management, assessment and learning analytics support, accessibility services and universal design consultation, and technology-rich learning spaces such as makerspaces, media labs, and visualization studios. Libraries also serve important institutional roles that are less visible but highly influential, such as supporting accreditation, contributing to student retention and success initiatives, participating in campus diversity and inclusion efforts, and advising on information policy and governance. Taken together, these services show that the academic library is no longer a single service point, but a complex, distributed partner in teaching, research, and institutional strategy. For professionals in this field, understanding this expanded service landscape is essential for identifying areas of impact, collaboration, and leadership. Academic librarians are not generalists by accident, they are specialists by design. Subject librarians build deep disciplinary knowledge that allows them to collaborate meaningfully with faculty and students. Collection curation today requires balancing print legacies with digital futures, while making evidence-based decisions informed by usage data, curricular needs, and equity considerations. Scholarly communication advocacy has become a defining role. Librarians advise on open access, copyright, author rights, and publishing ethics. This work positions librarians as critical intermediaries between faculty, publishers, and institutions. When we talk about challenges facing academic libraries today, it is important to understand them as interconnected pressures rather than isolated problems. Budget constraints, format decisions, access expectations, and professional responsibilities increasingly overlap, requiring strategic responses rather than purely operational fixes. Budget pressures remain a central challenge. Rising costs for journals, databases, and digital platforms continue to outpace library funding in many institutions. As a result, librarians are often required to make difficult trade-offs that directly affect teaching and research. This work extends beyond managing expenses. It involves analyzing usage data, aligning collections with institutional priorities, communicating transparently with faculty, and advocating for the library as essential academic infrastructure. Budget decisions are also increasingly tied to conversations about sustainability, open access, and alternative publishing models. Balancing print and digital collections continues to present both practical and philosophical questions. While digital access supports remote learning, flexibility, and scale, print materials remain critical for certain disciplines, learning preferences, and long-term preservation. Libraries must consider space constraints, user behavior, preservation responsibilities, and pedagogical goals when shaping collections. These decisions are less about choosing one format over another and more about designing a balanced and responsive information ecosystem. Another growing challenge involves pressures around intellectual freedom and collection integrity. Libraries are increasingly navigating efforts to influence what materials are collected, retained, or made accessible. These pressures can create tension between institutional expectations, community concerns, and professional values. Librarians are often called upon to defend the principles of open inquiry, support diverse perspectives, and uphold policies that protect access to information while maintaining trust and credibility within their institutions. The operational new normal for libraries has also introduced significant strain. Post-pandemic shifts have changed how students engage with library services, with many libraries reporting challenges such as staffing shortages, reduced print circulation, and the need to continually adapt reference and instructional models to hybrid and online environments. So, changes in user behavior, increased demand for digital and hybrid services, staffing limitations, and evolving expectations around responsiveness have reshaped daily library work. Librarians are balancing traditional responsibilities with new service models, often with fewer resources, while maintaining service quality and professional well-being. This environment highlights the importance of workforce planning, role flexibility, and organizational support. Technology, particularly emerging tools such as AI, adds another layer of complexity. While these technologies offer opportunities to enhance discovery, research support, and instructional services, they also require thoughtful integration, staff training, and ethical consideration. Libraries are increasingly expected to lead conversations about responsible use, transparency, and information literacy related to these tools, even as they navigate uneven readiness and resource availability. Accessibility and inclusion remain foundational concerns that cut across all other challenges. Libraries serve increasingly diverse populations, requiring intentional design of physical spaces, digital platforms, collections, and services. This includes implementing accessible technologies, applying universal design principles, and examining how descriptive practices and collection choices reflect or exclude different voices. Equity in access and representation is not a supplemental goal, but a core responsibility of the academic library. Taken together, these challenges underscore the evolving role of academic libraries as strategic partners in higher education. Addressing them effectively requires data-informed decision-making, strong communication skills, cross-campus collaboration, and a clear articulation of professional values. For academic librarians and emerging leaders, understanding these pressures holistically helps shift the focus from reacting to constraints toward shaping resilient, forward-looking library services and policies. Digital transformation reshaped academic libraries from location-bound spaces into distributed service platforms. Access is now continuous, remote, and increasingly user-driven. AI integration is changing discovery, recommendation, and research workflows. While these tools offer efficiency and insight, they also raise concerns about transparency, bias, and intellectual autonomy. Librarians play a crucial role in mediating these tools responsibly. Open access platforms and institutional repositories challenge traditional publishing models. By supporting open scholarship, libraries increase visibility, impact, and public access to research while questioning long-standing commercial control over knowledge. In practice, academic libraries are increasingly acting as builders of digital research infrastructure rather than simply stewards of physical collections. A clear example of this can be seen in how the University of Arizona's library has approached digital access, preservation, and research support as interconnected services. Rather than treating digitization as a standalone project, the library developed digital collections and an institutional repository that bring together faculty scholarship, student research, special collections, and archival materials. These services are designed to make unique institutional content discoverable and usable beyond the physical campus, supporting both teaching and advanced research. The library also invested in structured digitization and digital preservation workflows, recognizing that long-term access requires more than putting materials online. Decisions around metadata standards, file formats, storage, and sustainability were built into the initiative from the start, allowing the library to responsibly manage born digital and digitized content over time. Importantly, these digital efforts were paired with research and scholarly communication support. Librarians work directly with faculty and graduate students on sharing research outputs, managing data, and understanding publishing options, positioning the library as an active partner in the research lifecycle rather than a passive repository. Academic libraries support student success by functioning as active partners in teaching and learning rather than passive repositories. A central contribution is information literacy instruction that helps students evaluate sources, understand how knowledge is created, and develop stronger research questions rather than simply locating information. In practice, librarians collaborate with faculty to design research-based assignments and integrate library instruction directly into courses. Digitized archives, special collections, and curated digital resources are increasingly used in coursework to help students engage with primary sources and practice critical analysis. These collaborations move information literacy from a one-time session to a sustained learning experience. Libraries also support learning through intentionally designed spaces. Quiet areas enable focused individual study, while collaborative and technology-enabled spaces support group work, multimedia projects, and digital scholarship. Embedded librarianship and one-on-one research consultations provide targeted support that helps students refine topics, manage sources, and improve the quality of their academic work. Together, these services show that academic libraries contribute directly to learning outcomes, research confidence, and student success by embedding expertise, resources, and learning environments into the core educational experience. Beyond collections and instruction already discussed in earlier slides, academic libraries are increasingly involved in work that operates behind the scenes but has a direct impact on research quality and academic credibility. One such area is support for research data practices. Libraries often assist researchers with organizing files, documenting methods, selecting appropriate storage options, and planning for long-term preservation. This work is especially visible during grant preparation and project closeout, where clear data practices are essential but frequently underestimated. Libraries are also playing a more active advisory role in scholarly publishing decisions. Rather than simply pointing researchers to journals, librarians help interpret publishing agreements, clarify author rights, and explain how different publishing models affect access, reuse, and visibility. These conversations often happen quietly and individually, yet they influence how research circulates and how institutions manage their scholarly output. Another area that has expanded significantly is digital engagement embedded within existing academic workflows. Library instruction, research support, and reference services are now routinely integrated into course platforms, online research environments, and virtual consultation spaces. This allows library expertise to be available at the point of need, rather than requiring users to seek it out separately. What distinguishes these services is that they are not standalone offerings. They are layered into research, teaching, and administrative processes that already exist. For academic librarians, this work requires adaptability, collaboration, and confidence in professional judgment, particularly when navigating evolving expectations, emerging technologies, and institutional change. This moment marks not a beginning in the literal sense, but a point of orientation. Academic librarianship is a field shaped by ongoing change, and each of you already occupies a position within that landscape, whether through experience, aspiration, or emerging responsibility. What matters most is not adopting predefined roles, but developing the capacity to read context critically, recognize where influence is possible, and respond thoughtfully to institutional needs. This includes questioning inherited practices, understanding the constraints within which libraries operate, and identifying opportunities where professional judgment can make a meaningful difference. Skill development in this field is less about mastering tools in isolation and more about learning how to support others, students, faculty, researchers, and communities in navigating complex information environments. Librarians contribute by clarifying processes, advocating for access, and designing systems that enable inquiry rather than restrict it. Over time, the cumulative effect of these decisions, small and large, shapes how academic libraries evolve. The future of the profession is not defined solely by technology, policy, or structure, but by the choices made by those working within it. In that sense, participation itself carries responsibility, and leadership often emerges through sustained, reflective practice rather than formal titles.